Welcome to a new video in my home automation series, and today I want to cover my final video of the iHost, at least the final video that I planned at the moment, and this is the Node-RED integration on the iHost. So you can see the iHost, which is here, and in the previous video I covered how you can configure it, get it started, how you pair Zigbee devices, how you can add simple automations or scenes, how you can install the eWelink smart home application integration so you can import or sync your old Wi-Fi devices to the iHost. We also looked at how you integrate it with Apple HomeKit, so with the HomeBridge integration, and just in the previous video I also talked about the cast functionality. And yeah, today is the last one, is the Node-RED. I don't think it's going to be a full video because there are a couple of features which I haven't managed to test out fully. I couldn't really figure out how they work, so I'm just going to give you a glimpse of those, but still I think we are going to cover most of the things that are included in this Node-RED integration at the moment. I'm pretty sure that Sonoff will be working on this, or IT will be working on this and adding new functionality maybe in a couple of months' time. So first, let me just cover how this integration works. So just like as with the eWelink, the HomeBridge integration, I've covered that you have in the iHost this Docker option here, and then you can install other Docker images or in the Docker hub. So you click here, and then when you search for Node-RED, you will find that there is this Node-RED slash Node-RED. That's the one that you need to install. So you just click here and you click on add, and then it will be here. So what you would notice now is you add this Docker integration, which means that this is something that you install on the iHost. So once you click on run, your iHost is going to run a version of Node-RED. So think about it like, when you purchase a Raspberry Pi to install Linux, and then you install Node-RED in order to run it. So now you don't need a Raspberry Pi because you have your iHost, and that iHost can run this Docker image with a Node-RED pre-installed on it. So again, this is a good way of using the iHost for something other than just running or synchronizing Zigbee devices or being as a Zigbee gateway, because it is a small single board computer, so it has the capability to run, for example, Node-RED as well. So the price that you pay is like a price of a Raspberry Pi similar single board computer, plus also a Zigbee gateway, plus all the additional software which is already installed on it that I've covered in previous videos. And what I'm going to do in this video is, because I already have a Node-RED instance separately, I'm actually going to use that. But of course, everything is going to work the same. So once you have added this Node-RED integration, you can just click on run, and then you can just use the default settings, and then you choose run, and that would create a Node-RED installation, or that would start your Node-RED, which is running on your iHost. So, and once you have done that, you can access Node-RED like you would normally access it. So you go to your server IP, and then you enter the port 1880. And because I haven't started this, I'm not going to use that. But again, once you click run here, you should be able to access your Node-RED like iHost.local:1880. If I would need to mention pros and cons between using running Node-RED on the iHost as opposed to running Node-RED on a separate server, is the advantage is definitely that you don't need a separate server. So if you just want to get started or play around with Node-RED, or just want to use basic functionality, yeah, you can just use the hardware that you have already. I can think about two cons. First of all, in my previous videos, I have shown you how you can make changes to Node-RED settings that you need to make in the settings.js file. So obviously, because this is running in a Docker file, you don't really have access to the settings.js. So that's one thing. So for example, previously I mentioned how I configure the file storage in settings.js, so you won't be able to use that. And also there are a few things where you would need to install some Node.js components manually. So for example, I'm using the chart image, which requires the canvas component to be installed. You won't be able to do this in this image because you can't run or install anything on top of what is already on the Docker image. So yeah, that's the disadvantage. So once you have everything installed and your Node-RED is running, we still need to install the eWelink nodes. And this is called, it's this one, node-red-contrib-eWelink-cube. So at the moment it's version 1.0.0, so you need to install that. And once you install it, we get a set of nodes that we can use. And in this video, I'm going to talk about most of these, but I'm going to just keep on a few, which I don't think it's going to be very relevant unless you are thinking about some very special scenarios. So let's get started with the first one. So the first is the get devices that you can see here. Well, even before we get to that one, so whenever you use any of these nodes, you have to configure your server. And then you come here and you install a new server. So yeah, by default, it just says add new API server. So you click on edit, and then you have to specify the IP of your iHost. And this is the first issue because normally you can just easily copy the IP from here, and also the name of your iHost is iHost.local. The issue I found is that if I try to use the local DNS name, which is iHost.local. So if I put iHost.local here, and if I click on search, it will say that the server is found, and then it will ask me to create a token, and everything seems to be working, but I didn't get the event messages on my Node-RED. So the only way to make it work is to use the IP address, which again, you can get it here, but the problem is that this is not a fixed IP, and in the iHost, there is no option to set a fixed IP. So you can see there is nothing here which allows you to set a fixed IP. So the only way to get around this is you go to your router configuration, and you have to assign a fixed IP address to the MAC address of your iHost. And I'm not going to show you this because this is different in every single router, but it's probably under the DHCP settings, and then you can create these permanent assignments. So even though my iHost is asking my router for an IP address every time, because I have this list, it will always get this IP address. So I can now use it in Node-RED. So you put in the IP address, you can click on find, and it's going to say connect success. And when you click here for the first time, it will ask for, this button is going to be different. It says, I think it says request token. So you click on that, and you come to the iHost screen, and you will have a pop-up in the middle of the screen which says, I think a third-party device, or it says something that something is requesting a token, and you have to just accept it, or I think the button is either done or okay. So you click on that, and then it will show you this like that. So it says has token. So that's just the indication that you have managed to create a relationship between Node-RED and iHost. And of course, from this point onwards, you have one which is called the iHost, and you will use this server configuration for every single of your eWelink cubes that you are going to use in the future. So that's the initial setup. But now let's get back to the nodes. So the first one, as I said, is the get devices. And you can create, well, obviously you assign your server, and then you can select a category, and then you can also select the device. So this is how you can query the device information, or the device, device information and device state as well. And you just have to send in a message, and in the debug you will get all your device status. And because I selected all, I get an array, and in the array I get all the devices which are in my iHost. So basically all of these that you can see on the screen here. So these could be devices, Zigbee devices that are linked to the iHost, and these could be eWelink devices that are coming through the eWelink integration. So you can see this is my TH01. So that's that must be my TH10, I think, which is, I'm not sure where it is. TH. Let me just go a little bit back. No, this is Zigbee. So that's the temperature and the humidity sensor. Okay. And then it has states, and for example, it has temperature and it has humidity. So you can see it here. And then if you go further, let's go a little bit back. So this is the POW. So this is a Wi-Fi switch. So that definitely comes through the integration. But you can see it has capabilities, and then it has a power, and then the state. You can have whether the state power on power state always shows the relay status, so it could be on and off, and it also has some other tags. And you can just go through these if you want to get. So this is the touch. That's the touch sensor, and it has capability of power, but what we really need is the state power, and it is off at the moment. So you can just read your systems. You read the device settings from your iHost, and that's also useful if you want to get initial state of a particular device. So the next one is we have two event nodes. One is the event, and the other one is the online status event. And actually, I'm going to use the first one a little bit more in detail. And again, here you select your server, and then you select your devices. And for some reason, I think there is a bug here, because I've selected all here, but when I go out and I come back, then sometimes this disappears. But it is at the moment it is configured to listen to all device events, but you can specify like a specific device for that. And the output of this is a JSON, but it is a string JSON. So you have to use the JSON node in order to convert it to a string. So for example, if I use my Blitzwolf door sensor, then if I open the sensor, then I get two messages. Ignore the first one. So I have received an object detected true, and I also got an RSSI. So it is sending a RSSI feed as signal strength as well. And if I close it, then I get again two messages, and now it's object detected as false. So this is how the information comes through from a door sensor, for example. But if I use the button now, you can see that I'm also getting a lot of RSSI here, because it measures the signal strength every time it receives a Zigbee message. But you can see that I received a single press event. And if I do double press, then oh geez, we got a lot. Then okay, that's power state, so something has turned on. Okay, not a power state, not a power state. Yeah, so normally you would I think that's the double press. So if you're looking for a specific event, then the best thing is that you specify it for a device. So if I'm only interested in the door sensor, sorry, this button, then I can do wireless button, and even here I can just select the wireless button status. So that's what we are going to use a little bit later. So that's how you get events, and with this simple configuration you can test what are the type of messages that you get out of the system. And the very same thing works for the online state as well. Again, you can restrict it to a specific device, and you get a message. Again, you just need to convert it to JSON whenever any of your devices go offline or they come back to online. I mean, I haven't really tested it because, I mean, I think it's good because, you can set up a notification for yourself that some of your devices have disappeared, but yeah, I don't think I'm going to use these a lot. So the next one is control device. So I guess this is the one that you would use the most. And I have a very simple example here. So if I bring on one of these control device nodes, again, you have to select a server, and then you have to select whether you want, well, at the moment it only has the option to switch, and then it's going to show you all the devices which have a switched output, like, something that you can control. Because I don't really think that there is any other Sonoff device which has outputs other than switch. But let's say I want to control my POW Elite. And here in the action, you also need to specify what is it that you want to switch, whether you want to switch it on or off. So at the moment, this is going to be on. And I think this is one of the, one more example. When I bring this window up, yeah, it says switch, please select, but I've definitely set it to on and off. And yeah, so anyway, the one thing I wanted to do here is I wanted to show you how a simple flow where you have, let's say, a payload of 0 or 1, and then we want to turn it into a, an eWelink on and off. So if here I can send a 1 for on and a 0 for off, which is usually the type of messages that we receive from other devices, and then I put it into a switch node. So if it's 1, it goes onto the top node, and if it's 0, it goes out on the bottom node. So now if I press on 1, then the POW Elite switches on. And oh, by the way, you can see here that we get a message which says success. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually return the new state. It just says that it worked and my POW Elite is on. And if I send off, then again we get a success, and my POW Elite is now off. So I managed to create a very simple flow how I can toggle a eWelink device using iHost. And of course, this one, these zeros and 1 could come from, let's say, a Tasmota, some sort of device, which usually sends zeros or 1s, like, a light switch that has been Tasmotized, then would set this type of information, and now this can control a Sonoff switch. So the next automation is how we can create an automation which, quite frankly, you can do on the iHost itself. But let's look at it how you can do the same thing in Node-RED. So what I want to do is I want to switch on my W Elite using this Zigbee button which is connected to the iHost. So first I create an event node, which again, it is configured that it only listens to the wireless button, and then it only listens to the wireless button state. And then the output, again, I need to convert it to JSON. And we will see that it, well, we have seen also previously that it sends a press event. And then that if that is a single press, then we want to turn on our PW Elite. Yeah, you can see, well, I want to turn it on. So now it is running, and if I press, well, we got the end result of this debug, but we can see that our POW Elite is now turned on. And if I turn it off, and if I press the button again, now it turns on. So, and if I look at the data which comes out from the button event, you can see that the message.payload has another property which is called a payload. It has a press property, which again has a press attribute, and it has a value of single press. So this is why here it says payload.payload.press.press equals single press, because that's the path of this attribute and the value of this attribute. So That's simple. But what if I want to use this button to toggle a switch, which would be very easy again to do it in the scenes, because when you create a scene, you can set, oh, not this one, but you can set in the scene that you don't want to turn it on or off, but you want to reverse or toggle the state. But unfortunately, we don't have it in Node-RED, so we have to be a little bit creative about that. So what I want to do here is, I'm going to use my button, but now I think I'm going to use the double press event, and then based on when I double pressed it, I want to turn my touch either on or off. And the way I'm going to do this is I also created an event which listens to the touch, and then it only listens to the device status. So this is going to send me the latest status of the touch, and I'm going to store in a variable, in a flow variable. So again, I'm going to store the message.payload.payload.par state in the touch state. And then whenever I received a button event, I check whether that is a double press. So again, the payload.payload.press equals double press. And I have a switch node which is checking this flow variable touch state. And if it is off, then the information goes out, or the message goes out on the first port. If it's on, it's the second port. So if it's off, then it turns the touch on, and if it's on, then it turns the touch off. So again, let's see if I double press, so we can see, oh, that was the wrong, that wasn't double press. Oh, no, that was double press. Okay, now it was double press because we got data on the debug node. So you can see that here. So this is the debug that we get from the touch event, and you can see that the par state is on. And again, I just pressed it twice. Oh no, the par state is on, so that's fine. And we can see that our touch is on. And if I double click again, it goes off. And I'm back on. And back off. So yeah, it's a little bit more complicated because we only get on off here, and we don't get a reverse. But still, we can work around this by storing the last state in a variable, and then just using that to decide whether we want to turn it on and off. So that is fairly simple. And so this was that was the control device. And then we have a couple of other things, which is like we get an event notification whenever a new device is added to the iHost, or a device is deleted on the iHost, or the device info is updated or edited. And I think this is great if you want to automatically register or deregister something in Node-RED, but I don't think that is going to get used a lot in reality. But again, you can put it onto your flow, you can configure it, because all you need to do is do an iHost and then just monitor the output, and then try to add a new Zigbee device. And then when you add, let's say, a new Zigbee device, you get a notification that, oh, okay, I have a new Zigbee device. But if you are setting up flows like this, I don't think that it's not likely that you would use the information. It's the same for the delete and the device edited event. I guess it's available, it's there for you to use, but I don't want to spend time on it because I don't think that's going to be frequently used. But what I am really interested in is this register device. And that is the main reason I said in the beginning of the video that I'm not able to create a full review on this, because I haven't really figured out how to use these. And I opened the forum posts on the eWelink Cube support, and I didn't get any response just yet, or any useful response, and there is a whole documentation, but it's not really clear for me how the documentation, how I need to put information in each of these fields. And it is a very complicated node as well, because what you have here is basically it allows you to create a new device from Node-RED and also hopefully control that device. And I think this is going to be great because that would allow you to integrate other devices into the whole eWelink, well, not the entire eWelink system, but at least to the iHost. So let's say there is a type of hardware device which is not supported by Sonoff. You can just build it on an ESP or just put Tuzmotor on it or your own firmware, and then actually use Node-RED to synchronize the device into iHost, and then maybe you can build additional functionality on it. For example, in the iHost you cannot set up scenes, so you can create a scene, let's say, and you can add the trigger on timer, and then you can specify the time, but you cannot specify that this needs to be executed or on dusk or sunset. But what you could do is you can create a device in Node-RED which says it is a sunset device, which has an on-off state, and then from a Node-RED you can switch it either on and off based on a sunset. Let's say you can use Big Timer for that. And then you can use iHost to build a scene on, let's say, when my sunset device turns on, I should do something. So this is when the sunset happens. But you control the sunset or this event from Node-RED. So let's show you this, how this register device works. I managed to do something, but it's not all. So you have to give it a name. So this is the first example how you create a simple switch. So it's a Node-RED switch. You have the server is iHost, and then you have a device name and a device ID. It looks like that it pretty much accepts anything. I mean, it just has to be, I guess the device ID has to be unique. So I just always give the same name and ID and the device name. And I haven't really tested it, but I guess in the device ID you can't use spaces, and so you might have to use underscore or dash, but the device name is the descriptive name which is going to show up. So then you can pick the category. So far I only played with switch, but probably the same will work with light as well. But you can see that there is so many other things that you can do, but I don't know how. And then you can select what would be the capabilities. So the power capability is actually the power output. So not the power consumption, but the switch output, which is called power. I mean, it's not called switch, but it's called power. And you can put a manufacturer and a model and a firmware version, and you can put a service IP. So this service IP is always the IP of your Node-RED. So for me, that's the IP of my Node-RED server, but you would put the IP of your iHost. And the confusion actually starts here. So these are the tags and the state, and that's where I'm having issues because I'm looking at the documentation and it just doesn't make sense for me how these actually need to be configured. So for this, I say that the tags is key and value. I'm not really sure what that means, but I think for this one, probably I could have just left the tags as an empty object, but the state is power state on, and that's like an initial state. And let me show you what happens. So if I execute this, then I get a response that my new device is actually registered. It got an ID, and then it also has some header information. Nothing really useful. But if I come to my iHost, then I have a new device that I just registered from Node-RED. And if I click on it, it works. And yeah, I mean, of course, this one works as well. And if I turn, so if I turn on the debugging, then, and you can see that when I change this node in which I created this device actually sends me information as well. So state, power state. So I get the notification whenever I switch this on and off from the iHost. The next thing would have been is that I also send in another value into this node to switch it on and off from Node-RED, and that's the bit I haven't managed to figure out. So here I tried a couple of things like sending in this payload state, power state on and off, but nothing seems to work. So this is the one I'm working on. And let's say I want to configure a 2-gang switch. So now you can see that it's called a 2-gang. Instead of power, it has toggle, and it has a number of toggles of 2. And here in the tags, you can see that toggle 1 is called the first, the second one is called the second. So that's how I can name the 2 channels. And again, if I click on this one, then the new device is created. If I go to my iHost, I have a 2-gang switch. It's called first and second. So again, I managed to create a 2-gang switch from Node-RED. And again, unfortunately, I don't know how to control it, but all the events I get back in Node-RED. And I also managed to create a temperature sensor. So you can see that it is a temperature sensor. I could add temperature, but I should be able to add humidity as well. So I can create all these, well, Sonoff only supports temperature and humidity at the moment. And I can also specify that the temperature unit has to be Celsius and not Fahrenheit. And I inject, and the new object is created. You can see it's temperature. It doesn't have any value at the moment. And again, I'm struggling here because I'm trying to inject some, temperatures in here, but nothing seems to be accepted. So I've tried, sending this the payload as, tags temperature and the actual value, but it just stays empty. So again, I haven't managed to figure out how to update all these devices from Node-RED. Of course, the temperature is not going to get updated in iHost, but you can see that how these events already come back. So again, this would be great because I would be able to use other devices that are not Sonoff, but I can just create an integration through Node-RED or use Node-RED as a middleware to create these devices and update their statuses. And of course, you can just go ahead and create scenes on these. And the other interesting thing is that if I delete this, and if I do this, it gets created again. It's back. Sorry, not this one. This one is back. So yeah, it's great because then as soon as you send in, let's say you specify this as inject when Node-RED starts. Whenever your Node-RED starts, it will just start creating all these devices, and even if you delete them, it will get created again automatically. So I think there is a great potential in this, so I definitely want to spend some additional time figuring out how these need to be created, how these need to be updated. Not to mention that there is like a whole load of stuff that you can create, because it looks like that, just looking at the category, all the categories that are available in Sonoff are supported. And even the latest one, you see curtain, and then whenever you select light, you have all these, for example, brightness, temperature, and the RGB value. So that is great as well. And you see some motor, so that's probably for the curtain. Some percentage value that's probably for the curtain as well. Again, temperature and humidity. So yeah, there are so many other ways to feed data into, let's say, iHost, and then just use the convenient scene functionality to build automation on these devices that are not actually Sonoff devices. So I think there is loads of potential on this. So hopefully I will be able to figure that out and I can give you an update. But I think that is all going to be for today. As always, you will find a link to this flow in the video description, but it is fairly simple at the moment. And also, as a sneak preview, I also want to show you that this same eWelink cube, so this whole framework on the eWelink side is called the eWelink cube, and this same eWelink cube framework is running on the NS Panel Pro as well. So all the functionality that I've shown you here, how you can get device events, device statuses, how you can control devices, work with the NS Panel Pro as well. But what I was most excited about the NS Panel Pro, if I can also create these additional devices on the NS Panel Pro. It doesn't seem to be working at the moment, but maybe again this is something that they will add in another firmware release. So as I said before, that will be all for today. Thanks for watching and hopefully see you next video.